share the recording for either, we're not sure, today or Tuesday. All right, so just to kind of have a sense of what is going on sort of all together, we have WIOA program trends, and everybody's aware, I think, of the integration of education and training IETs that are posing a great challenge all over the country to understand what it is and how to best or appropriately implement it. Career Pathways is continuing, but and so is transitions and co-enrollment, but these now are, I think, being understood in a more integrated way. And then EL Civics and civic participation and citizenship prep still play a role and are also integrated with the IELCEs. Common measures for WIOA, measurable skill gains are now something that more of our partners care about, and we are more involved with all of our partners. The whole notion of documenting success in one way or another through any number of kinds of credentials is becoming more and more prominent. Employment and wages are something we need to follow up on, that are an outcome that we need to pay attention to. And then transition to post-secondary education and training is all the more important these days. So in technology, we have mobile devices that our students come now to our classes with, and we want to take advantage of that. The X Prize did some pioneering work in developing free apps, and there's lots of ways that is playing into what we do more and more. Open learning resources are available. And then as far as data systems and data sharing, the more we work with our partners, and the greater the need is to share data across agencies and programs. So how is CASAS addressing these trends? Our new goal series is aligned with the CCR standards. That is the measurable skill gains piece. And we are doing more in terms of reports to hopefully be, I think, better able to guide instruction and improve programs. And the accountability piece is there, of course. We have this new portal, the e-test sampler for practice tests. And, you know, the rigor of the adult CCR standards is something that we hope will facilitate the transition to post-secondary and to jobs. On the technology side, of course, e-tests goes on with enhancements from the goal series. We are doing with APIs and other ways to share data with our WIOA partners. Something we're working on now that we think will be exciting is mobile attendance feature for like a mobile phone attendance, so that teachers can easily take attendance from their phone. Also reach out to students through this new portal and using phones. And this portal, there's a pilot that was done and actually was in use this past year in California to do follow-up employment surveys through the portal. And I think you've heard us talk about that, but some other states that are now have approached us to try to ask us to help them do that as well. So that's exciting and evolving. And then as far as case management, that's something we're looking at as to how to facilitate some of the work that counselors and transition specialists need to do. So in EL Civics, in our California EL Civics project, we've added what we call co-apps, that's the plans. We've added one for the census. There are additional ones that have been added related to IETs that have emerged where there wasn't a co-op that was appropriate, so we've added in order to meet that need. Immigrant integration is something that in California, at least, is something that has emerged as a focus. So we've been working on indicators of immigration on a project like that, related to that. And then instructional resources for the co-ops we are working on a project with OTAN to make those more available. And then writing, I'm going to talk about in a minute and tell you what's going on there. All right, I hope you all are aware of this, but in case you're not, the basics about the NRS approvals is that for ABE, the reading goals is the only reading test that can be used starting July 1, and it's approved through 2025, the full approval. It's the 900 series. And for math, math goals is now the only ABE test that can be used for math. It's approved through 2022. So that's a 3-year approval, and we're looking to extend that approval. For ESL, just like all the other NRS-approved tests, the non-CASAS tests, ours is approved through 2021. Very much expect that to be continued through at least June of 2021. And so there's another 2 years of these tests being in use. So really nothing has changed for ESL so far. The Life and Work Reading 80 series, that at the lowest end is the beginning literacy, 27-28. At the high end, level D, these secondary level tests, reading for language arts, are also approved. And a lot of you may not be aware of them, but you can check them out in e-tests, or it's worth looking at. They're more academic. There could be an alternative to the level D in the Life and Work Reading series. In some states, this Reading for Language Arts test is not approved, so you do need to make sure that it's something that's approved in your state. But if it is, it could be an alternative, level D. And then the Life and Work Listening 980 continues to be for ESL. All right, so then what's coming up in the next couple of years is we need your help to get more data for the reading goals for ESL so that we can submit it. The plan is to submit it next October. For math, we need to collect additional data. We have a little more time for that, but we'll definitely need your help for that. And then for listening goals, that also we plan to submit next year, and we need help with studies for that. So if we really do rely on you to spread the word about field testing and research study participation in your states, and hope you can continue to help us with this. All right, so we have the Reading Goals series. This is what the paper tests look like. The appraisal is aqua, and then we still have our blue, green, brown, and red codings for the different ABCD levels. The insides are now in color, so that's a really nice new feature of the new series, both for reading and math. This is what the series design is with 901 to 908 with alternate forms. There's no beginning literacy in reading goals. Remember, this is now just approved for ABE, and there are no AX forms, you'll notice. So there are the 4 levels with alternate forms. The locator is a fixed form, no longer a CAT, which is adaptive. So it's 12 questions, the same 12 questions. It functions just like a regular test. And that's the 104R in e-test. Most important about the series is that it's aligned to the CCR completely, and so that shifts the focus to the standards away from the competencies, especially at the higher levels. At the lower levels, the tests look similar to the Life and Work Reading, though at level B it starts to include some higher order skills. But the focus is really on the standards, and especially at the higher levels, the vocabulary questions are academic focused, so that's different as well. This is the blueprint. It's the same, except there is a minor change that we just made. We added R9 under higher order reading skills for compare details. It was really always there, but we realized that that is appropriate as a reference, and so we wanted to call that out. as something that we're measuring. But I'm not going to go over this in detail, but hopefully you are familiar with this now. I will say that, and in the previous webinars, as I was saying, I've covered this in more detail, so please reference those if you'd like more in-depth on this. We're about to come out with the new CCR reports in TOPS Pro Enterprise, and the reports will look very much like this in terms of these categories being there, depending on what's covered in each of the test forms. A level D form would look like this. A level A form wouldn't have all the higher order skills. It doesn't have any. It would just have vocabulary and reading. And it will list the anchor standards as well as, you know, for an individual student, it'll say what % of the items they got right. And for a class, it would say what % they got right. So coming soon, very soon, looks like hopefully the end of this month, we'll be introducing these CCR reports in TOPS Pro Enterprise. These are the new score ranges. These are the goals ones. I think they have shifted up as we expected, though at the entry to adult secondary, low adult secondary, it's just a few points higher. But these have shifted significantly, and so that is indicating that we have to do more at the lower levels with the basic skills, the academic skills of our learners, so that they can move up a level. The CASAS reading standards have, well, they were significantly revised in 2016, and we've just recently uploaded the second edition, where we made a few additional changes. But if you haven't looked at them since 2016, when we changed them, please do. They are much shorter. They are organized in similar categories as the goals reading assessment. So please, and we have added the dots. I'll show you. These are the major categories, and the middle three are the same as I just showed you in that chart, except not for language. Foundational literacy is, of course, covered in level A, and the literary texts are not covered in our goals series, but they are in the standards. And then it's a slightly different format, where we have, well, as I said, we've added the ESL dots. So this is similar to how we had it in the old reading standards, and but we just added them to the 2016 version. And we, instead of putting the CCR standards all the way on the right in a separate column, we've just done a shorthand reference to them. So it's a bit easier to use as a document, and we hope that you will be able to reference the CCR easily to know exactly what this is referring to. Math goals, these are the test booklets, and this is the overview of the forms. And that locator is also a fixed form. It's 10 questions. I do want to mention that these timings are the maximum, or we should say that the allowable timing. So you should allow this much time, and please inform your programs that many students will not finish, will not take this much time. They'll finish sooner. The average time, it's, you know, I think we can calculate that and let you know what it is, but I'm quite sure that the average time is less than these timings. But the reason that we provide these timings is that this is what, in order to, for let's say about 85 to 90% of our learners to be able to demonstrate their skills, this is the time that's required for that. So it's really a matter of equity and allowing students to show their skills, that you should allow this much time, even though it may not take this much time. Calculators, a formula, I should say, are provided on the screen as are definitions. So there's not the need to memorize them. And many of the items, though, don't require students to actually calculate the answer per se, but really to understand the math concepts. And but we do now provide calculators, and so now it is required. And here's some. Oh, okay. This is what the calculators look like on the screen. There's an icon at the top right. When it opens, it looks like this. And here are some guidelines about it. This is on the FAQs in the math goals. We had a lot of questions about it, as you can imagine, so we added to the FAQs to say exactly which calculators are approvable or usable. And we have added now the ones that are used with the HSE tests, GED, HiSET, and TASC. That way, if programs are using those tests and those calculators, they don't have to get different ones for CASAS. So one thing, too, that was asked, and we said that it's possible, sorry, not that, cell phones are never allowed, but if a student is using e-tests, but is more comfortable with a handheld calculator, then that's something you could provide. So please be aware that if you're doing e-tests, you might also want to get some physical calculators in case students would like to do that. And but if you're doing paper testing, you must provide a calculator. This is the design of the math goals. I'm not going to go into detail, but I think hopefully you can see that it's a combined AB form and a combined CD form. These are the levels that they address. This is one way to look at the content of the math. And you can see here, this is a nice way to contrast the percentage of each of these domains in each of the forms, the lower and the higher forms, where like number sense is more in the AB than CD, but algebra is more in the CD. The others are pretty much similar. And I'm going to show you a new version of this blueprint on the website, we just posted recently. This is the new score ranges for math. They've changed, actually, and it's interesting that it's different from the reading, mostly because of this middle intermediate level that wasn't there before. So that has kind of pushed the ranges down, and so now completion of beginning literacy is actually below where it used to be before, as is beginning basic is just is also much lower. So you can see that there's more opportunity, more chances for students to complete levels, NRS educational functioning levels at the lower ranges in math, where they generally score lower, we've seen. So this is a kind of nice change. And when we get up to low adult secondary, it's actually the same as before. So this is based on input from the practitioners that participated in our cut score study. So, and you can see that adult secondary, because of the addition of middle intermediate and the need, for whatever reason, of only 6 levels, not 7, so that the adult secondary was collapsed into 1. So, but just be aware that, and so as not to confuse, there's still only 6 levels, but they're configured a little bit differently in terms of their names, and the score scale score ranges have changed. All right. Now, for students, and that would be ABE students that are transitioning from last program year, of course, this only applies to ABE because the new goals series can only be used for NRS reporting with ABE students now. So it's important to be aware that you must pre-test in the new goals series. You cannot use a life and work or a life reading or a life skills math test from before as of July 1. So you must pre-test in the new goals series. We recommend giving the locator, it's just 15 minutes for reading it or math, and that'll be a little bit more accurate than just trying to gauge it from the last scale score. So all the same testing procedures apply. In e-test, you will need new test sessions for the goals test, so you can get help from tech support to do that. if you need it. The test timing, as I think you're aware, has been a big talking point lately, and just what we've been saying and what may help you if people ask you is that if you're giving two modalities, generally it takes 2.5 to 3 hours. Of course, it depends. If you're doing e-tests, then the locators are just 15 minutes as opposed to half an hour for the appraisals. And then it depends on the level. It depends on how quickly a student works through the test. But this is a general guideline for how long it takes. Now, in terms of the reports, the same content standards and competency reports are available for goals. But as I just mentioned, we will have new CCR reports end of this month for reading, possibly end of July for math. It may be in early August, but it's coming very soon on the heels of the reading one. And the reading standards, as I mentioned, the second edition is on the website. The CASAS math standards are there. They have not changed. And both are very strongly aligned to the CCR. We are working on new CASAS listening standards, so stay tuned. That's something we hope we can put up sometime this year. It seems to keep getting a little bit pushed down based on other priorities, but we are working on it. In fact, we're very far along with it. So, as I've been alluding to, there is a new CASAS e-test sampler, which is the e-test version of the same sample test items that are on the website. Those sample items have been there for some time in the paper test format, but now they're available in the e-test format. And we're very excited because this is something that not only teachers but students can easily access and be better prepared to take the tests in e-test with the format that is actually in use. You know, this benefits from the improvements that came with this change to the HTML, and that means clearer images, the enlarging and reducing in the size, and mostly enlarging, I think, is what's usually necessary, is much more intuitive now in this format, and there are some new navigation features. So this is what they look like. If you see in the top right, there are two different kinds of information there. On the left, where it says 8 and the 9, 8 is a progress bar. In this particular set of sample items, there are 9 questions, and this is question 8 of those 9. So this is showing progress through the whole test. And then here on the right, and it's important, we're learning to really help students understand this so that they can be helped by it. But this is just their progress in any one set of items. So in this case, this is about this note where the reading prompt, there are 3 questions related to this note to Ryan. And there are, this is question 2 out of those 3. So the reason that we wanted to include this is so that students have an idea of how many questions are related to a given passage, so that they can dig in and know that there are a number, not just 1 or 2, but 3, usually 3 or more at the higher levels, and know which question they're on in that set. Okay, I see there's a question in the chat box. Have there been any reports of students who are placed using the goals appraisal into Math CD and earning an invalid score, so they must retest with AB? Yes, we have had some of those. You know, it's not perfect. The appraisal and the locator it's much better to use them than not. I think you'll have a much better, or I should say a lower percentage of retesting when you do use the appraisal or the locator. But it's not perfect, and if it can be, 15% retesting is something that we consider to be adequate. I know it's not popular when you have to retest, but it's not possible, because of how students react to the locator or the appraisal, or just how they feel that day, and compared to when they do, they may just be more comfortable when they do the pre-test. So there's a lot of variables, but hopefully we are actually looking into the locator for math right now to just, we're pulling the data and we're about to analyze it to just make sure that the cut points are working well. And if there is a need to adjust them, we can easily do that in the back end, and we will if necessary. So if you do have agencies that are telling you, normally they just tell us, and we do hear about that. But if you do hear of agencies where they're having issues with students who take the locator or the appraisal and are not testing in the accurate range, then please let us know. Oh, I see. 60 students, 5 replaced in math, and I see. So, okay, well, that, it's not great, but I'm not, I can do my, that's about an 8% retesting. So, that's not unexpected, I'd have to say. Okay, let's keep going. All right, well, before I move on from the goals, are there any other questions in the chat box? Or I think what I'm actually going to do is go out into the website and just show you some of the things I've been talking about. Oops. All right, so here's the home page. If you see on the right side, under What's New, this is our new News and Updates Webinars link. And if you click on it, you will now see that the next one is on August 21st. And these are the topics. And here is the one that happened yesterday. And we're very up to date. And here is the webinar recording. And there's a June one also, and the May one, which actually the May one has, as I was mentioning earlier, a little more detail about reading and math goals. So these later ones are with some of the other new things in reports and other aspects. So we're excited. As I said, we had a lot of people on the one yesterday, and this is a way for agencies to stay updated about what's happening. Okay, back to the home page. Back, if you go to the top left under the logo, going to product overviews, and then on the left on the side, we can go to assessments. One thing I want to point out too is that there are some pages that are specifically about ordering the reading goals and the math goals. So that's a way to give people a little bit more assistance. The catalog has now been updated, the online version, with all that information for reading and math goals, because the paper catalog came out in the beginning of the year when not everything was included. The math goals in particular was not in there. So that's how you can help programs to do that, or they can call us. The reading goals page does have the May webinar recording. It has the blueprint, which hopefully you've seen before. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to show you the math one in a minute. But we just actually updated the reading goals grade level equivalents. So I hope actually you'll be discouraging programs as much as possible from using GLEs. But what we've seen is that we're getting inquiries from some of the CTE programs where they definitely have been using grade level forever, and it's a little hard to get them to change. But so that's why we do provide them. We just revised them slightly to kind of be more in line with the CCR. So if programs haven't looked at them recently, they should make sure they're using the latest version. The FAQs we are updating as needed. The sample test items refer here to the, actually, well, I'll just show you down. This is a grid that shows the basics about the series. The click on sample test items, here we have the paper versions, and that's been there for some time. But what's new, if you see on the left, the first listing is the CASAS test sampler, and if we click on that, we get to the sampler. And so this is new. Pink is reading, blue is math, and green is listening. So for ESL, you can go to the life and work examples. We have all 4 levels of goals. The math goals, we're going to be putting up more shortly for all the levels. You know, it's so easy to access. It looks like e-tests. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you can see that let me get myself out of the way here. You know, you can see the plus or minus enlargements on which work for both the, you know, both prompt and the question and distractors. We go to 2 of 2 in the practice. For some reason, sometimes this comes up too big. Okay. Then we can go back to practice or begin. And here we can see what we saw before, the progress bar, and then the 1 of 3, because there are 3 questions with it on this passage. So I'm not going to do more on this, but if you'd like to spend more time taking a look, please do. It's just this easy link to get to it from the sample test items page. And then on math goals, a couple new things. We have new grade level equivalents for math, and then we also have the test blueprint, which we just posted recently. And here, I'm going to make it a little bigger. This is like the one we've had for a while for reading. We can see the overview with the content in each domain, and this is the AB level initially. And for 2 of these domains, we have, because there are enough items in them, we're able to break them up in 2 parts. So for operations in the number system, there's base 10, and here are all the CCR correlations. And then fractions is separate, because this is these are subcategories that we are able to report out on. And I think that level of detail is useful for teachers and students. And in measurement and data, we also can have 2 subcategories, measurement and then how it's represented, data analysis. Then at the CD level, there are no subcategories for these, but this is how the content plays out, and the CCR references. Okay, so please spread the word. This is there, hopefully useful for all of you. Go back to the math goals page, where we do have sample test items. We have FAQs for math. That's where the calculator information is. Okay, I see that there's something in the chat box. The intake process for ABE to see if the student is literate. Is it mandatory for Florida as it is for ESL? No, actually. So I think, I mean, at least that's what I would say, but I think it's something we probably have to talk about with Phil. So, you know, I think some screening, initial screening is important, but I think generally what we've seen is for ABE, most of the students do have basic literacy and they can take the locator. But, you know, there may be some students, ABE students, that for whatever reason, don't have those skills. And so I think it's always preferable for a program to do some initial screening of just have them write a few, you know, just name and address or some, you know, basic thing to see if they have the most basic literacy. Okay. I want to show you also the reading standards. That's under training and support, curriculum management and instruction. Of course, you can always use the search box. Basic skills content standards. And here we see the CASAS Reading Standards 2016, second edition. I will say that we do still have the Reading Content Standards 2009 here, and that's because the Life and Work Reading series is still coded to these old standards. So while we're in the transition time where the ESL approved test is still Life and Work Reading, that was always coded to these older standards. So, but the goals reading for ABE is coded to the new ones. I would say that in instruction, if you would like to be using the new CASAS reading standards, that would be a good idea, hoping that you are starting to use the CCR in instruction. But for the time being, we have these two sets of standards in play. All right, now this second edition of the CASAS reading standards is has a really nice, I think, and informative introduction. And I encourage you to read it to understand how they evolved, what we changed. So that's there. And then it shows the relationship to the CCR standards. And then, let's see if I can get this bigger. I showed you this earlier, but this is showing you that we have these now these hollow dots, which are indicating that these are standards where there is not a direct alignment to the CCR, but we felt that these are standards that need to be included. In this case, it's because the foundational literacy, the CCR, even in the Reading Foundations section, did not include Reading Foundations 1 from the College and Career Readiness Standards. So that's why they're here, but they're not in the CCR RF standards. But RF2 and 3 are there, and so those are filled-in dots. And you can just see how it goes on. And we, as I mentioned earlier, we've put the references to the CCR like this now. And in the section 3 is where we did make a few changes. We added 2 standards and then reorganized the sequence. So if you have already been using these, please note that that has changed. Okay, I see there's a question about the listening standards. Yes, please do keep using the current listening standards. When we put out the new ones, then you can decide, but the test reports for listening are still coded to the old listening standards. All right. Let me see. I think that about covers it for what I wanted to cover to show you on the website. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. How are we doing? All right. I'm going to see if I can hurry up a little bit. This is the writing assessment. As I mentioned, we in our NEDP program, we are using automated scoring. It's very exciting. It's working well, and we are planning to make it available more widely than NEDP, so stay tuned for that. We will keep you posted. It would not be NRS approved, but it would be an additional assessment. We do have a lot of inquiries as to whether we have some writing, and then the automated scoring really is nice because it's not expensive and it takes no time at all. It's instantaneous results, so that's exciting. Please help us get more data for this high school equivalency study. You know, there is a place in one of the reports that talks about the likeliness of passing these HSE tests, and unless we have your help on these comparison studies, we cannot provide that information. So this is how you can contact us to participate in these studies. If a student is has just taken the high set of the GED and then also takes goals, reading or math, then that data is what we need. Also, as I mentioned, we do need your help with math and ESL, reading and listening. NEDP, we've been very active in expanding the program, new professional development, the auto scoring, as I mentioned, we've got a scholarship for NEDP clients. Workforce skills certification, I do want to mention it's something that has been developing nicely over the years, and now it's completely online and more fine-tuned. We're seeing a lot more interest, and it's even if you've pitched it before and there was no response, I'm finding, and I think you may find too, that with the increased partnership in WIOA, local programs are more and more interested in having a way for students to be able to have a profile like the one that's here, where the tests that they've already taken, in this case reading and math, are there, and then if they would like to show more about their employability skills with soft skills, this video simulation, that's an additional cost, an additional test, but it really can enhance what they can show employers about what they can do. So I encourage you to revisit this, and if you're interested, please contact Christine, who's taken over the training and outreach for this WSCS system. Maybe she'll put up, I don't think I have it here, the information for that. Quick search, we're updating it. We have the big heavy lifting now of updating it for the CCR and the new goals materials that are starting slowly to come out, not as quickly as I would like to see. And if you do hear of some really, truly great CCR-aligned materials, it'd be great to make sure we know about them. So in technology, this mobile attendance that I mentioned earlier is exciting. We have more dashboard features, the API gateway to allow for badges and somehow allow students to really use this portal, perhaps to show employers what they can do in terms of their basic skills is exciting. So these are new features that we are working on. All right, this is very important to talk to you about the new CASAS training. The basic implementation training Moodle course, it's currently on the website. I know many of your agencies use it to get started with CASAS in addition or instead of the face-to-face training that you offer. But what we realized is that we needed to come up with a new version because we wanted to be more specifically targeting the needs of the users that take this training. And so we came up with 4 modules, and here's how they're organized. The first one is an overview, and if you see in the bottom, there's the user role on the left. So for all types of users, whether they're testers or teachers, this module 1 is something that they should take. The modules are 1.5 hours to 2 hours. I mean, you can take longer if you wish, but that's how we've designed them, not to be too long. Then module 2 is focusing in on e-tests. So if you're just doing e-tests in a particular agency, you don't have to learn all about the paper testing. You just can do module 1 and 2, and that's what you need to know. If you're only doing paper, you do module 1 and 3, which is the focus on paper. And if you're doing all 3, unfortunately, you have to do all 3. And if you're a teacher and you're not doing any testing at all, then you can do module 1 and 4, which focuses on interpreting test results and reports. And then, of course, others, anyone can do that 4th module. You may want to use these now as you do your recertifications. The module 4 could be used for that, or even the new modules, because they have new information in them, could be used for the recertifications of testers in your states. So you might want to consider how you do that in this next program year. We're hoping to get these up as soon as we can, and those of you who tried them out at this year's Summer Institute, we thank you very much for doing that. We are still open to comments from you. And as we hope, if you can get them in very soon, we're trying to update these as soon as we can and get them up and running. And once we do, we will take down the old CASAS implementation basics course and replace that with these new, the set of 4 modules. So please stay tuned. And as I said, if you have comments on what on these that were used at the Summer Institute, please let us know as soon as possible. We thought they went pretty well, but we did get comments, and we plan to revise accordingly. Let's see. Anything? All right. So let me just quickly. There are some new things about the reports in the goals series for the content standards. Instead of having multiple content standards for any given test item, there's only one. And this is because when we were developing the test, we were focusing on the CCR standards. We were really planning for every item to test one standard primarily. So it really is, that's how we are reporting out the results. So it also really makes the reports much easier to use because there's only one standard instead of so many. So in TE, the way you navigate, and I guess I will say that I think for all of us as trainers, myself included, I'm really trying to get more familiar with TOPS Pro Enterprise, how to access the reports, how to move around in TE, and I hope you will devote some time this coming year to become TE literate and e-test literate, because I would say that it is now a requirement for our certified trainers to be comfortable. And if you're not at the program level, it's something you'll need to do. All right, so the content, this is how you get there. This is what they look like. This is how you can see, these are the content standards for reading goals. This is a class report. For competency reports, again, just one competency. And in this case, you'll see that this is how you get their test results, competency performance. Then for every set of items, where here you can see there's 4 questions for the first set, it's the same competency. So even though you might search on the 3 digits, it's not really necessary because there's only one competency anyway. And if you'll see, this is a class report, but we're recommending that you move to a competency category, which is just a 2-digit competency, because that's where you're going to, it's a much, much, much easier report to understand. And this is the same information that you're going to get from the previous slides, but it just is presented in a much more digestible fashion. So please look into that. Search on competency category for the competency reports. The individual skills profile, this is the old one. This is that likelihood of passing in the bottom left, which was not going to appear until we have all the data for that, for goals. So please help us get that. And as I mentioned, we are coming out very soon with the new CCR standards, and that will go where it says reading content standards. Right now, the content standards go there, but very soon the CCR report information will go there. All right, so coming up soon, we'll be able to demonstrate what those CCR reports look like in our next webinar, hopefully. That national webinar, we'll be able to show those. So you can take a look. Next year, we're still in Orange County. Hope to see you there. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Dawn, and she's going to show you the new training completion portal.
Hi, everyone. I'll be very quick, but don't hesitate to ask any questions. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see. So I think, Linda, I'm not sure if you have the share. I think so. So I'll need to have you unshare so I can share my screen. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So let's go here. All righty. Okay, so beginning with the 2019-20 program year, basically July 1st, we added and will continue adding separate training completion portals for CASAS implementation training that is conducted in your state. So your training participants will now be able to generate a certificate with the date of training and certified trainer name. And they can do this easily, just right at the end of your training before the participants are dismissed by using either a laptop, computer, or on their smartphone, and or a tablet if they brought a tablet. So we will be currently, or we will be updating the training completion directions, and we'll have a new version to include in your training packets soon. And so the reason that I'm going to demo one of the training completion portals is to give you today the opportunity to try out the new portal and to provide us feedback. And so I'll go ahead and demonstrate here for you. So launching the web browser, and I see we have a question here in chat, so let me just reference there for just a moment. Okay, so let me proceed on. So I got to move out the meeting panel out of the way. Sorry about that, folks. All right, so the new steps or directions, we've tried to streamline this process, is simply to direct your participants directly to the training website at training.casas.org. And in the list of categories, simply to select the training completion portal category. And then from there to select the state for your training completion portal. And so I'm in California, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the California Implementation Training Portal. And then from there, I will identify the day of my implementation training. In this case, it is July 18th with our certified trainers, Jane and Linda. So I'll go ahead and click on that portal there. I'm prompted to enter my user credentials. And so you may want to consider having participants make sure that they have an account on the CASAS website before attending training. This will help tremendously at the end of your training to help to expedite that training completion process, because they have to activate their user account. So if someone does not have a user account at the time they attend training, it may be more difficult for them to complete their training at that time if they don't have access to activate their account through their email. So after entering the login credentials, I'll go ahead and click login. And this opens directly to the training completion portal that I selected for today's training. The trainer will provide a passcode to the participants, which is the workshop ID that you receive from Teresa Tellis here at CASAS when you request a workshop, when you notify CASAS that you will be conducting training. And she will schedule a workshop and provide you with that 4-digit ID. So I'm going to go ahead and enter in that passcode there and then click Enroll Me. This opens to the training completion portal specific to today's training. I'll click Test Security Agreement and then respond to the questions. So today's date, I guess I should follow my example here of putting in the slashes, the trainers, the workshop ID, The next page, so that was training verification. The next 3 pages are the evaluation portion. So essentially your participants will be submitting their training verification and evaluation with their test security agreement. And also give the participants an opportunity to provide any additional feedback about their training experience. And then next comes the test security policy, which is identical to what is posted on the CASAS website. And so I'll click the next page. And so each section of the CASAS test security policy is divided into these short pages. And this was intentional so that it saves the participant time from having to scroll on their mobile device. So clicking next here, I'm going to acknowledge that I've read the test security policy on test administration, as well as the test security policy on confidentiality, as well as copyright infringement, and the agency test security, and the agency test security policy agreement. So this is what I, as a staff member of my agency, will agree to, and I'll read all of these items. Select yes, and then electronically sign this agreement. Select my state and enter the training date. Now I realized we had already entered the training date, but this is kind of to mimic signing a hard copy document where often you are asked to sign your signature as well as date at that time. And click next here. And this simply lets the participant know that there is more information on the CASAS website about policy, copyright, and security policy. And then next is, and also they can download a hard copy of the test security policy form. And then so the participant just simply clicks submit to get, or submit their questionnaire to then get their certificate. The certificate displays automatically on the screen, giving the participant the opportunity to download and save that certificate to their computer or their mobile device, as well as print right then and there on the spot. And then the online training website will send an email with a copy of the certificate attached. And so you'll see here, the teacher completed CASAS implementation training on this date. The date is also here. And I have the certified trainers, credit hours, and there you go. So any questions about the process here? Oh, I guess I should mention too, is that the certified trainers, or the trainers that are assigned to deliver the implementation training, they will receive an automated email as well with the input from the participant for their on their test security agreement. So that is all automated, whereas previously we have been managing that manually. So as you can see, we've done our best to automate and streamline the training completion process. So I see here we have a question. Is there a way that participants can email their certificates to themselves? Yes, so the online system will automatically send a copy of their certificate as an email attachment to the email that they used for their CASAS user account. Oh, the training, yes, the training facility would in fact be able to generate or print, excuse me, print these certificates because the trainers that are listed here actually have access to this training completion portal. So those trainers can go onto the training website, log in as the trainer, and they will have additional options here for the administration block. And when they click on Implementation Training Certificate, there is a hyperlink in there, and they can generate, or sorry, I use the term that we use in TOPS for Enterprise for generate a report, but they can click on that hyperlink and receive and print copies of everyone's certificates. Does that answer your question there? Great. Any other questions, folks? All right. So we will be getting updated information out to you soon, and I just also want to invite you to, if you would like, you can customize the look and the information that's on this portal as well, since you as the certified trainer will have direct access to this portal. All right, folks, I'm going to turn it back over to Linda and Christine.
Are there any other questions or comments? One thing I will say is that this session, or the two sessions this week, were to bring you up to speed from what was shared at the Summer Institute. But after we have revised the new modules and gotten them set, then we do plan to hold another set of webinars to go over them with you in more detail, not every little thing, but to just point out some of the key things that are different and answer any questions about them. So that's something that you can look forward to in the coming months. Anything else? Christine, Jane? All right. Well, thank you so much for attending today. We really appreciate it, and we'll be talking.